tell us about Donald Trump. Now, I've had a number of people saying Rob likes Donald Trump. And in fact, I had a friend catching me over the weekend, and she's a very successful business person. She owns they own a restaurant and a pretty big farming operation. And she said to me, are you a Donald Trump supporter? To me. And I said, hey, you can't ask me that question because I don't support one or the other. I'm here as a platform. She says, what does Rob think? What does Rob think? Because I love Donald Trump, is what she said.
I agree with her. I think the counter-revolution is taking place, and it's taking place at warp speed. So, the famous 100 days are coming up any minute now. And the 100 days are not relevant for any other sense than it's just a media creation. And I think FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, created it just to say, the country's in such bad shape. And in 100 days, I've done the following things. And Jacinda Ardern, that lefty of New Zealand that unfortunately they got rid of, also basically said, this is what I've done in 100 days. And she did it in less than a minute. It was very impressive, actually. This is what I've done. And ran through it. But let's have a look at what Donald Trump has done in his first 100 days. 100 days only. He's got a lot more 100 days to come. It's hugely impressive. Hugely impressive. And forget the media, the hysteria that comes out of the left. I mean, they're going to complain about everything he does because they're the left, and that's what they do. And, the media, the pushback, the hostility. Trump is ecstatic. Look at the man. I think he's living his best life. He's positive. He's happy. His team are absolutely in sync. And if we start at the border, he was elected on a number of issues, but one was closing the border. The border is now 90% closed. 10,000 people a day were pouring through the US border under that useless Biden, and the border is closed. Now, Trump has still got to deal with I think it's 11 million or 12 million people that Biden let through the door that have spread out all over America, hiding out, applying for Social Security grants, cards, benefits. That's a whole nother matter, and he's got to obviously deal with that. But the border is secure. In 100 days, he's done it. Second, let's look at the energy. On energy, there's no more net zero. Al Gore's been completely discredited, as he should be. He's one of the greatest hoax that's been placed on humanity over the last 20 years. And, Appalachian coal fields are being reopened, re-energized. There's continued increased fracking. The Americans are now sending LNG to Europe, which Europe desperately needs. The price of oil has come down. I think it's at $60 a barrel. The energy market in America has never been in better shape. It's drill, baby, drill. This re-energization of the energy market and dissing of the green nonsense has taken place in 100 days. It's extraordinary. And for people that worry about the strategic reserve, I believe the American strategic reserve is actually filling up. I don't have the detail on it, but I've heard that it's actually in much better shape. So third, DEI. DEI was just, an issue that Donald hated. And he hates South Africa because South Africa is DEI in motion. And across America, DEI has been killed. And I was listening to a great podcast where somebody said it's like Rip Van Winkle, America. Everyone's woken up suddenly and go, what were we thinking? What were we thinking for DEI of putting a person's skin color ahead of merit? It's exactly what Martin Luther King didn't want to happen. And under Obama and Biden, it was introduced. But it's been swept away in a meaningful way. And I mean, that's another incredible thing that Donald's done. And the law is on his side. Donald Trump has the law on his side on DEI. Then we look at the stock market. I mean, the stock market's been very volatile. People panic. Oh, Trump's killed the stock market. Well, the reality is that was true for probably a week, 10 days. It's come right back. So, everyone panics. Look at the bond market. Look at the stock market. Well, guys, calm down. It's not 1 week by 1 week. And on the trade and tariff situation, which is probably the most interesting of all, everybody, including The Economist. I've been an Economist subscriber for 40-something years. And The Economist has gone pathetically anti-Trump. Now, I know they are the liberalized, globalization, free trade paper, and that's The Economist was founded on the back of that. I get it. But they're so anti-Trump, they can't see the light of day. And I'm tempted to cancel my subscription, but I know I won't. I love The Economist. Trump came out with his across-the-board tariffs. which was firing a shot into the air to say, I am serious. I will make these things happen. And they were proportionate. I think that's an important word, proportionate tariffs. And what has happened is 70 countries have come to the table and said to America, we're happy to do a deal. We want to trade with America. We're happy to sit down, work it out, and do a deal. And those 70 countries include the UK, Italy, Japan, some serious players. And I think in a matter of weeks, America's going to be announcing deals that have been done with serious economies like the ones that I've mentioned to do deals. And it's going to be an absolute boom. Everyone will realize that it's part of the deal. Donald said, if I'm serious about tariffs, let's do a deal.
So what do you see happening now? You have said that the crisis is coming. Do you see an 1985 type crisis that accelerated the end of apartheid? Do you see this crisis that's happening now accelerating anything?
Yes, but it could go either way. When the riot happens, when everyone hits the street, when the strikes and madness happens, the civil unrest, Musi said to me, it'll happen one day, but we just got to make sure that the people march at the ANC in Pretoria and not fry the country. You can't control something once it's out of the box. And I mentioned the difference between 85 and today is that, that government actually cared about the economy and all the people of South Africa, and they made the rational decision. We can't keep going. Let's do a deal. Whereas this crowd, the ANC, just don't care. They don't care if people die. They don't care if more people unemployed. And they don't care if we deindustrialize and our country collapses and our economy collapses. They don't care. They don't care. I wrote an open letter, which I might actually use as my State of the Union address. I might do that on BizNews in a month or so, rewrite it a few weeks ago on how to fix South Africa. It was 10 points. I mean, everyone knows what they are. Privatized state-owned enterprises, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty basic. The Free Market Foundation have an identical list, as does the Institute of Race Relations. It's very clear how you can fix this country. The ANC don't care. They don't want to fix the country. They want to loot and steal and feather their nests. And if you didn't read the Zondo Commission, it's clear as the driven snow.
That would be illogical. And I say that because you have a group that runs the country, and let's be completely frank about that. Patrice Motsepe's sister is married to Cyril. His other sister is married to Jeff Radebe, and they're all great beneficiaries of the new South Africa, massive beneficiaries financially, including Cyril himself, who is a billionaire, which is extraordinary to think about. And if they didn't care, why then would they, that it just doesn't make sense, because if they don't care, then all of their wealth is going to be wiped out, which is pretty clear what happens in this kind of a crisis. And those individuals themselves could get sanctioned internationally. They surely will have massive funds around the world in US dollars, and then the US's long arm can reach them. So I hear what you say, but it doesn't make a lot of sense if you're sitting in their shoes.
So how much power does Patrice really have, Cyril? Okay, he's a massive beneficiary of what's happened. He's made a fortune. On the positive side, he was the first person to sign the Giving Pledge with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett to give away a third of his money to charity when he passes. So shout out for him. But, he gives, I'm guessing, 10 million rand to the DA and 10 million rand to the ANC. He feathers his nest. And has he ever stood up, ever, and called out the ANC? Has he ever said, guys, I think things are not quite going in the right direction. I really think we should be a bit more focused on free enterprise? No, he's at some Cannes Film Festival. He doesn't give a damn. He's just, benefiting like all the other BEE people, chomping away at the trough, trying to get as much as they can before it falls apart. They don't care. You are logical. I like to think I'm logical. The business tribe are logical. These people don't care. And logical minds can't understand that.
Paint a scenario for us of what is likely to happen over the next 5 years. It only took 5 years after the Rubicon speech for apartheid to be completely vanquished, which many at the time of 1985 would have said was absolutely impossible. Paint us the scenario, the upside and the downside.
Pretty. The upside is we bang along, going sideways and going nowhere at 1% economic growth, and the government doesn't use the warfare of EWC to just take the watches off our arms, which they can do now. It's like having a loaded gun in a bedroom with children running around. At some point, one of the kids is going to pull the trigger. That's what EWC is. So the positive, the hope over experience is this: we keep going sideways. More and more talented people leave the country. I think a lot of people will take up the very generous offer of Trump to go to America. Maybe Australia, New Zealand will, offer the same thing. And then, both those countries' IQs will go up, and rugby skills and cricket skills will go up by poaching all our South Africans. And, more and more people who can leave will leave. And this country will just slowly deindustrialize and end up being, a medium income, impoverished, useless country. And that's the positive. The negative is we have an economic collapse. The rand goes to 50 to 100. And I see this in the next 12 months. Everybody shifts into gold or Bitcoin. You see the price of gold going up already, and externalizes their capital as quickly as possible. All the young graduates leave. Bang! They don't even think about staying. And there's an economic collapse of sorts, and civil unrest, serious civil unrest. So I'm more on the downside. I'm 55% downside than upside. I think America coming in swinging is a good thing. But because we have an ANC that doesn't care, they're just looters, I think this could go horribly wrong. I'm pretty negative right now. So let's look at who the most powerful people in the ANC are, or most popular, okay? They're the ones sitting in the cabinet hoping to be the president next. It's not going to be Gwede, but it could be Fikile Mbalula. And Fikile Mbalula, I don't think he has any principles. He's just sort of, a bit silly and a bit, but he's popular, and he's not going to become the president under any current scenario. Cyril doesn't really particularly want him. Paul wants the job. Mashatile, he's not going to get it. That nasty Lessufi ain't going to get it. And Cyril's going to try and give it to someone younger and female, as what I've heard. But imagine, and I'm just floating a balloon here, imagine if Fikile Mbalula stood up and said, this isn't working, guys. I've had a deeper look, and let's try radical free market capitalism and see if we can get economic growth and people out of poverty. If he today came out of the box and did it, he's not going to become president. This is probably his shot. Who knows who would support him? I mean, Gwede might say, let's get behind it, I don't know. I'm floating a balloon here. I'm just pulling it out of left field, because Fikile does have a big following. Or Fikile and one or two others bail out and they join, Freedom Front Plus and Carter and Patriotic Alliance to form the true capitalist free market party, and then they suckle the top people out of the DA. Can you imagine that? I mean, maybe it's madness and fanciful, but I'm now trying to be hopeful. I'm trying to look for a solution. But I don't see a leader out of the ANC other than maybe Fikile. And he's not the smartest tool in the box.
You'd have to scratch your head to say which of the politicians are the smartest tools in the box when you get to that point. But perhaps South Africa needs another FW de Klerk or a Gorbachev who's prepared to sacrifice their
both were in charge. Alec, both were in charge at the time. So you're saying Cyril will do that?
I'm not. I'm asking. I'm looking for hope, and I'll tell you why it's so important right now. Unfortunately, on social media and legacy media, they're all saying, well, Afrikaners will never leave South Africa. Linda interviewed Neil Diamond, who's from the South African Chamber of Commerce in the United States. He said, after the speech of Donald Trump's, there was so much demand, their servers crashed. He said they have engaged with 50,000 people over a couple of days who are wanting to go into the United States. If Donald Trump opens that door, as he has with his executive order, there are millions upon millions of people around the world who want to get into the United States and can't, legally, that is. Some of them have been getting in illegally, but focus on the legal immigrants. If he opens that door to South Africans, it's a nonsense to say that people aren't going to go. Of course, people are going to go, and that there's the evidence for you. And
Alec,
Australia, New
100%.
Zealand, are doing the
I
same thing.
100% agree, Alec. I think any young Afrikaner would jump at the opportunity. It's the older ones that you're listening to, the people that have vested interest in farms that can't move, who are the bitter einders, guys kind of my age, who are saying, I've lived all my life here, I can't see myself moving, or I have a farm and I can't leave it, or I'm, mortgages. But the young generation, gone, every single one. I see very few Afrikaners that wouldn't jump at that opportunity. And by the way, Afrikaner, it's not just, a cultural, you speak Afrikaans, you can come in, you can't come in because you're English speaking. I think it's what Donald Trump is saying is you're intelligent, educated, dynamic people who ought to have a good future. I welcome you with open arms, and don't think he cares whether it's white, black, green, or yellow shapes and sizes. I think he's just saying South Africa's going down the plug. We'll take your best people, which is genius. I mean, if I was running some tin pot country, America's not tin pot. If I was running some country that really needed a bit of dynamism. Let's say I was running Ghana. I'd open the floodgates to South Africa. I'd say all South Africans who have a matric or a degree or some skill are welcome to come to my country. That country would boom.
Just to move on, one of the areas that we spoke about before this conversation was about Black economic empowerment. We're seeing it come through now quite aggressively. I spoke with Gabriel from the Institute for Race Relations, Gabriel Kraus from the Institute of Race Relations yesterday. He's like exposed so much, and again, opening our minds. We can't change things if we don't open our minds anymore. But within the business community, and this is where your real strength is, people in business, you connect with them all the time. We've seen some quite interesting developments there, and perhaps we could dwell just for a moment on Coronation. I know you've had a look at that BEE approach that Coronation have introduced.
Yeah, I think no one's really noticed it. Coronation put out a sort of announcement to say that they have gone from 31% black ownership to 51% black ownership. And they've done that through an issuance of new shares to two trusts, which means that, the existing shares are being diluted. Whoever owns these existing shares have been diluted. Their sort of bland excuse is that they need to be more competitive for investor mandates. And they need to get better tax benefits from the government. They need to have higher black ownership to secure government contracts. Now, all of these reasons, Gabriel Kraus, hair on his neck would be going up, because basically it's just talking about increased inefficiency and securing dodgy deals from the government. So what is Coronation up to? And my question when I look at this is, what the hell are the non-black employees of Coronation thinking? What's happening to them? They're being seriously disadvantaged in order to win government contracts. What the hell is Anton Pillay doing? I mean, I know he has a picture of Crispin Son on his desk, and Crispin Son is this really unpleasant, anti-Semitic ANC stooge. I mean, what is Anton Pillay and the gang at Coronation doing? What do the non-black executives and shareholders of Coronation think about this? No one's noticed it. It's been handled very quietly, but raises a big question mark. And that leads me, if I may, to the other data point, is really MultiChoice. If I can raise that. MultiChoice's share price has collapsed. And it's collapsed because of very bad operational results. I mean, in their executive team, are a disaster. But that's a whole nother matter. And MultiChoice is going backwards rapidly. I know a lot of people who've given up their DSTV subscriptions. I've also given up. I had 3 of them. I've dumped 2 of them, keeping one just for the rugby. But, DSTV is heading backwards. MultiChoice is heading backwards. And the share price is at an all-time low. I think on the announcement of its horrific operational results, it went from 92 Rand to 40 Rand. I mean, it halved, more than halved. And there's Phuthuma Nathi. These are these 2 trusts that own 26% of MultiChoice. I think that's right. Yeah, it's 26% of MultiChoice. And they've been one of the most successful BEE investment companies, the two Putumanati BEE funds that own the 26% in MultiChoice. They've been great dividend producers for the thousands of black shareholders in the trust. But are they even going to get dividends going forward? And that's more of an operational mess affecting a BEE ownership structure. So, look at Coronation, look at MultiChoice. BEE, we all know, is incredibly bad news for the South African economy, incredibly expensive, and wide open for corruption. We must get rid of BEE. And you did an excellent interview with Anthea Jeffrey, who has a proposal of EED instead of BEE. But I think everybody knows BEE is not working.
Just to close off with, and I'd love to get your insights on this, given your Harvard MBA and a lot of people in the US. What is happening now? Because it's almost like the Americans are saying, okay, we got this little peanut place, and we're fractionally small. It's 1/74th of the size of the United States in terms of GDP. We've got this little operation. They're really pissing us off. We need to do something to maybe just open the eyes of the people there. Are you seeing us in South Africa continuing to ignore the obvious as far as our governors are concerned and continuing to pick up the wrath of the United States? Or can Donald Trump and his new administration ever be a friend of South Africa, which would enable us to actually grow this economy?
Not in the short term. The ANC has no leadership. Gauteng does its own thing. The Leila Khalid lunatics do their own thing. Cyril is not in control. He has absolutely no control over the ANC whatsoever. Everyone's doing their own thing, breaking, stealing, feeding their cadres, not wanting to give up their privileges. The ANC is not in control of itself, let alone the country. So lunatics at different corners of the ANC and different corners of the country will still keep poking America in the eye because they're receiving money from Iran, because they're able to steal, and because it suits them. So America will just get increasingly pissed off with South Africa. And I do think targeted sanctions are coming. I think the likes of Naledi Pandor, Cyril Ramaphosa, Julius Malema, etc., are going to get targeted sanctions put upon them. And it's brutal. They're not going to enjoy it at all. It changes your life. It hits you in the pocketbook. You can't travel to the West. You can't use intermediary banks that are linked to America. And America will put huge pressure on other Western countries to adopt a similar approach to these people. There's a lot of pain coming for these people. But who knows what will change? If you can keep stealing in South Africa, maybe you don't need to travel anywhere else.
Or maybe you can position yourself as a martyr, that the Americans are coming after me and poor me, and better vote more for me. But what does it mean, this individual targeted sanctions? How else have they addressed this around the world and used it as a tool for the Americans to get their way, I suppose?
Well, you've got anti-country tactics like tariffs, cancelling a go. It hurts everyone in South Africa. Those tariffs and broad-based sanctions and cancelling agreements hurts all South Africans. And I think the Americans, bipartisan Americans, Democrats and Republicans, know that hurting the country and hurting the people isn't the way forward. But I think targeted sanctions is. Pick the people who are working with terrorists, who are doing hate speech, who are obviously corrupt. Just read the Zondo Commission. The names are all in there. Just read the commission, target those people. In America, punishments are coming, and they are severe.
And at some point, you would assume that the people who are voting for that political party would perhaps be looking for people that will try and enhance the economic situation of South Africa, not retract it. How much further can we go down? How much is in your mind, have South Africans come to the realization that we've been on the wrong path? We are getting poorer, as we have for the last 15 years. We need a change, quite a radical change. We are prepared to vote that in because we are a democracy.
Until senior members of the ANC put their hands up and say, it's not working, let's force a change. And I don't know who those people are. I was hoping Enoch could be that person. Unless that happens, and unless the Gogos wake up and realize the ANC's let them down, it's not going to happen. if it still takes a bus ride to the poll, a T-shirt, posters up a month before, and a thing of Kentucky Fried Chicken on the day to get your vote, if that is still the case, then we really don't stand a chance. Then we really are heading over the cliff. It's too long to convert those people.